This week's video is on I guess essentially miscellaneous category of roses, where I've grown a bunch of roses, but not enough to have like a film about one group of roses, like my past videos of the David Austin Gallicas, Teas, and Chinas. The first rose on this video is the Chestnut Rose, Rosa Roxburghi. I've only grown the double form. There is a single form as well. Um, I I think that'd be interesting to grow as well. This rose is interesting in and of itself. Its leaflets are incredibly small compared to normal rose leaflets. There are spines, but they are prickles or thorns or whatever you want to call them. They are based in pairs at the base of the leaflets. Um, the bark peels as well. I've only grown this rose in Georgia. Um, I know that a close relative, Rosa hirta, grows in the botanical garden here where I am in zone 6A, 5B. So the chestnut rose might grow here where I am in Missouri. The reason it's called the chestnut rose is the bud, and to some extent the hip, looks like a chestnut husk. Um, Very unusual rose, worth growing if you are able to. The next rose is Cecil Brunner, uh, Polyantha rose, also known as the sweetheart rose. It's got really small flowers. Doesn't just because it has the small flowers does not mean it's a small bush. The one that I planted at my at the house when I was a teenager in '97 wound up being 6 feet wide by 8 feet tall, um, loaded with really small flowers, though. So the sweetheart rose is referring to the size of the flower. Um, nice rose. There's spray Cecil Brunner, which has a scent as well. Um, there is also climbing, which has the same flowers it climbs. That, though, is usually a once blooming rose, while Cecil Brunner is a repeat blooming. The next rose is Raubritter. It is a once blooming rose. I grew it in Oregon and Georgia. It seemed to like the Oregon weather better than the Georgia weather, probably because of the less humidity and less intense heat that we got in Oregon than Georgia. Um, for me, it seemed to do fine in shade, uh, both in Oregon and Georgia. I was growing underneath trees, and it was blooming fine. I'm sure it would probably do better in full sun, but so just keep that in mind. If you do have some shade, this might work as that spot. If you don't mind a once blooming rose, it's a nice rose, a little bit more than single and is cupped, but worth growing. The next rose is Dr. Huey. I grew this in Atlanta, not necessarily intentionally. It's often a rootstock rose here in the U.S. Um, it's nice dark red rose. You can often find it in older homes or older rose plantings where the rootstock Dr. Huey has um, overtaken the above growth and or even flowering right alongside of it, which eventually it will kill a plant that you actually want or think that you have if it's grafted on Dr. Huey. It's a nice red rose. It blooms once. It's also for those people who go looking for roses in cemeteries and older neighborhoods. It will often I've heard it referred to as Dr. Fooey as well. But it's a nice rose. The next rose is Iceberg. It's white floribunda rose. I've grown it in Georgia and Oregon. I like it. For me, it didn't get super big, which is fine. I saw quite a bit in public parks, both in Georgia and Oregon as well. I haven't seen it a lot lately. I, there is a rose garden over in Kansas City, Missouri that has it, but there's not. They don't have it in the area of Missouri that I'm at. in public parks. Definitely worth a rose to have. The next rose is swamp rose. As its name implies, it can grow in wetter soil than what other roses would. Um, Something I found interesting about it was that the leaflets were uh, uh, to make up the leaflets were shaped a little bit differently than like your normal garden roses, hybrid teas, English, even old garden roses. So it is an interesting rose, worth growing. This next rose, I'm sure I'm going to mispronounce. Souvenir de Malmaison. Um, it's a bourbon rose from the 1800s. I only grew it in Georgia. Um, it was a nice rose in my yard. For me personally, it wasn't anything super spectacular, um, but it's a nice rose to have. The next rose is Penny Lane. It's a climber rose. One of its parents is actually New Dawn. Me personally, I prefer Penny Lane over New Dawn. I did only grow Penny Lane in Georgia, but I found it much more of a easier to deal with rose than whenever I had to deal with New Dawn roses. So it's a lighter color rose, but I don't have a problem with that. So if you, me personally, I would pick this over New Dawn any day. This next rose is Blue for You. Um, it starts out a little pinker than and then fades to like this gray purple. Um, you pretty much single rows of flowers and clusters. It has nice orange hips after the flowers are done if you leave them on. Um, worth growing. I find that I'm liking it more the longer I have it, but I do like the change between the opening up pinkish and fading to the gray purple ish color. This next rose is Ferdy. I grew it in Oregon and Georgia. The plant can get pretty sizable, so just keep that in mind in your sighting. It's got smaller flowers. It is the only ones blooming. Um, it's a nice plant to have. The next rose is Lawrence of Arabia. The way I got this was as a trial rose through Jackson Perkins near, well, 97, 98 ish. Um, and I never could find a name for it until I was at a rose nursery actually, and matched it by smell and then looks and stuff and colors. And then I reached out to Jackson and Perkins, and they did confirm that that was Lawrence of Arabia. It's nice, uh, orange, soft orange, yellow color. Not something that's going to scream at you by any means. Um, it's a rose that's worth growing um, if you like that color range of roses. The next rose is Lemon Zen. I've only grown it in Missouri. It's a nice rose. It's a, I guess, modern noisette because Graham Thomas crossed with the musk rose. Um, Worth growing if you're in a warm climate. It doesn't really like the 5B, 6A. I think this last winter actually killed it. Um, zone. So a worthwhile rose in warm climates. This last rose was supposed to be Variegata di Bologna. I'm aware that Variegata di Bologna is striped. I'm aware this rose is not. So I call it my non or not. Depending on my mood, I either call it my not Variegata di Bologna or my non-variegated Variegata di Bologna. Not sure if at one point it had been Variegata di Bologna or it is a plant that was um, mislabeled dash something else. I did reach out to the place that sold it to me. It's inconclusive is the best answer. If anyone happens to know what it is, and put it in the comment, please. Thank you for your time and thank you for watching the video.